I'm glad to be joining you today to talk about something I don't normally talk about. Trisha teased that I normally talk about VR and computing and the future of race in the internet. But today I'm going to talk about something that's kind of been a passion project for me, something that's a little close to my heart. And it all started when I was reading a piece in PSFK called The Nomad Class. So there's this whole idea of what they're calling the new digital nomad class. And you're looking at, oh, this is actually the wrong slides, but it's okay. And so what you have is the new digital nomad class, which is defined by PSFK as of February 2016, so a new term, as this group of educated and affluent people who can move around the globe. The nomad part comes from this idea that they don't belong to any one given country. Right, and so I'm looking through this PSFK thing, and I'm paying attention to all the different things they say are necessary for digital nomads. There are things like a packable safety net. And there are things like an omnipresent community. And I look at this and I realize, these things might be really, really useful for all of these other people who have been in media lately, and all these other folks who are also digital nomads. They comprise kind of this other nomad class. This idea of people who are without a state, who are only tethered and only in touch with people and economies through their mobile phones. And so I started thinking a little bit about how that could happen, right? What does this actually mean to be an other in a society? This is actually something that I know really, really well. For myself, I was born in an underclass in the United States of America. So I spent most of the first 25 years of my life between poverty and working class. And if it wasn't for the transformative power of the internet, the idea that the little blog that I was writing and the ideas that I was transmitting would be beamed around the globe, that people would like, respond to, invite me to write, invite me to come for the New York Times. If the internet wasn't present, I would not have ever had the career that I had, and I wouldn't be talking to you. So for me, I know what it means to kind of be an economic insider, and to be a member of this new burgeoning digital nomad class, but also what it means to be an economic outsider. And because some kind of destabilizing force has happened that forces you out of your comfort zone. For some of us, that's poverty. For others, it's civil war. For others, it's terrorism. But there's an idea that we kind of create through what we privilege in our societies, economic insiders and economic outsiders. People in the digital nomad class are economic insiders. They're allowed to have all of the trappings of wealth and of community because we've determined that these people can actively, productively participate in any given society, right? For the digital nomad class, borders are meaningless. They don't mean anything. I can take my passport from one country, I can look at the lifestyle of another country and get my income from a third country. I can transfer all of these things through technological advances that allow me to globally bank, to mind my business, to even rent out my house if I wanted to. So there are all these fabulous innovations that are made for people like us to feel more free and more entitled as we move around the globe, to fully become global citizens. But to folks who are on economic outsiders, for whatever reason, again, remember these destabilizing events, these things are not as freely given. And it can have outsized impacts on what ends up happening. You'll notice that there's two very similar structures here. There's a structure on the left and there's a structure on the right. On the left is from a startup that caters to digital nomads called Cassita. And Cassita is kind of taking that whole tiny house movement, minimalism, and just producing it in beautiful ways. Cassita houses are made to live in mostly urban areas. I think their case study was Austin, Texas. And the idea is to solve the high price of urban housing by providing this kind of beautiful, well-designed, tiny space. And when I look at the Cassitas, right, and they're, somewhat high price tag, they're not quite out yet. They're going to release a little bit later in the year. I immediately thought about the drawing on the right, which are the IKEA refugee shelters. Now, these shelters alone represent a huge innovation. Most refugees currently are living in tent cities, which is horrific. And so IKEA has found a way to kind of create these collapsible shelters that are firm, that are stable, that stand up to the weather, and that also have electricity. But at the same time, just take a look at the design here. What are we saying people are doing in this space versus what are we saying people are doing in this space? This space is designed for working. This space is designed for waiting, right? So what kind of information are we conveying through design and through what we give people about what they're supposed to be doing in any given space? The issue for a lot of refugees isn't necessarily a lack of skills, but it's limbo. It's personal limbo. You're stuck. You can't do anything. And when we force people who are both skilled and unskilled alike into this mass, into a place where you just have to wait and pace out your time until you're acknowledged as legitimate, could be 2 months, could be 8 months, could be 2 years. We are forcing all of these people essentially into a hustle economy or an underground economy, where the only places you can legitimately kind of make money is through small trades, reselling cigarettes, hoarding some of your goods and selling them back out to people in more need, instead of kind of capitalizing on what else could be there. But let's also look at another innovation that they give to digital nomads. So I actually own one of these. This is a Menaul bag, all right? And it's made for kind of this digital traveler. There's a laptop pocket that's reinforced. There's a little tarp that comes out that protects you from rain. And the whole idea of switching to a Menaul bag is that you have this globally ready carry-on bag that can stack anything. As you can see, people actually go on YouTube and have all these different videos of how much stuff they pack with them for both business and pleasure on 3 weeks in Thailand, 4 weeks here, 5 weeks here. And so I look at that, and I look at the packing and the travel hacking and how do you make your life work across borders. And I started thinking about what refugees are actually allowed to take into these camps. The International Refugee Committee has been publishing the series on Medium called Uprooted, and it showcases what people are actually allowed to take into the camps. Until I read Uprooted, I had no idea that most people were limited to just one bag. Even if more things had survived the journey over, once you get to these camps, you have to consolidate into your most important possessions. And I thought it was really fascinating to look at what these possessions were. So at the top is a bag from a teenager, a 17-year-old named Iqbal, all right? And notice there's very little. There's one change of clothes, there's a cell phone, there's some medicines, and there's a little bit of money. And that's it. This is what you get to start your new life in a society. This is what we pack for 3 weeks. This is what you get to try to start your life over. That's rough. The bag down here on the bottom is even smaller, and it actually belongs to a 34-year-old trained pharmacist. The little gloves, latex, the stuff that looks a little bit like trash, that's actually different currencies of money that were wrapped to protect it from the sea journey. Various currencies. And so this person, again, a 34-year-old pharmacist, skilled, professional class in his society, which in his case was Syria. But they're both now stuck in this limbo. One bag, you got your cell phone as a connection, you've got your cash because your cards don't necessarily work across borders. And then you just have hope. You have to sit and wait and hope that someone will eventually, one day, allow you to get stable enough to invite you back into their economy, to retake your certification or retake your license. There's one other thing I wanted to point out about this bag. Right here. So the 17-year-old teenager that I mentioned, in his interview, talked about 2 of his most important possessions. The first was face whitening cream, and the second was hair gel. And so, it's easy to go, typical teenagers, right? It's all like image over everything. You have to be, even if you're fleeing a war, you still got to be fly. Like that is being a global teenager. Except in his case, reading that quote kind of punched me in the gut on Medium, because he said, I have to have my face cream and I have to have my gel because I don't want people to look at me and know I'm a refugee. I want to fit into my society. There's many different ways to make people economic insiders that have nothing to do with their earning power and nothing to do with their education. And so, as we sit here and we start talking about the future of work, PSFK, what's going on with insiders and outsiders, we're really kind of dividing the world into 2 camps, all right? We used to call it the haves and the have-nots, and now it's kind of the digitally connected and the digitally marginalized, right? So you can take these in 2 different types of forms. And for me, as a person who's been an outsider and then became an insider, there are just so many memories I have of ways that this could have all gone so wrong, all right? What if the internet wasn't available for me? What if I didn't start blogging? What would happen, right? I might still be working at a camera shop. I might still be working at a sandwich shop. I definitely wouldn't know you, I wouldn't know Trisha, I wouldn't know Kenyatta, I wouldn't know any of the people that I know because of that one shot, that one chance I got to try to make something different, to try to be different. There was a woman that I used to work for, again, back in the United States hustle economy. She was attempting to get her green card. Her name was Anna. She was from El Salvador, and she was attempting to get a green card. And so while she worked under the table, which is an American phrase for kind of off the books, or just being paid in cash. When she worked under the table for a wealthier family as their nanny, I was the babysitter to watch her 2 kids. And the thing that always struck me about that situation wasn't just kind of the injustice of it, though as I got older, I would think about that more and more. But what also got me, and what also killed me, was that every day when I walked into her house, I would look at the medical degree that she had prominently displayed on her wall. Anna didn't lose her skills when she was fleeing the Salvadorian Civil War of 1975. She lost her country, and she lost her context. And she became what we're seeing now in political environments as part of this big demonized mass, right? This idea of these scary refugees who are coming to take our jobs, who are coming to bring extremism, who are coming to change our way of life, and not people who could come in and fundamentally change and influence our societies. So this is the choice we're starting to make. So there are all of these ideas about how do we live in society, right? I'm not going to pretend like I have all the answers. I'm not going to pretend that this is simple. Like I said at the beginning, I'm from the United States, right? I'm watching this crisis from afar. Everyone in this room has a front row seat. You're dealing with the logistic challenges. You're dealing with the things that are frightening. You're dealing with the changes in your social systems, and your social welfare systems, which you guys have done a great job with, by the way. Good job, Nordic nations. You're dealing with all of those things. But the thing that I want to convey to you, and the thing that I really think is important, is this understanding that we are making a choice as societies, right? We are deciding in our actions today and tomorrow what our future will be. And it's really fun to read the PSFKs of the world and imagine this is the future of work. I never have to go to a desk again. I can work from Bali. The future of retail, the future of leases. And not to realize that the choices we're making now are also going to that future. What future are we choosing? Are we choosing a future of economic inclusion, where people who've had destabilizing events, people like Anna, people like me, people like Dimu, who was in a United Nations report about refugees, who is currently running a radio station in Africa from his refugee camp based on the cyber cafe that they set up and his mobile phone. He just figured out how to do it using the internet. There are millions and millions of people with those stories. They just need a break. They just need the chance. And our job as global citizens who people do listen to, as people in positions of influence, as citizens in societies where we have democracy, where we can vote, where we have ballots, where we can speak up, is to say things about how we're going to shape our future society. It's not going to be an easy conversation, but we can start asking those questions about who are we including? When we make these choices to close a border, or to say that you can't work here without a work permit, or it is not to advocate for work for people who are currently in refugee camps, or not to figure out, is there a better way to do our housing system or our pipelines? We are making choices that are marginalizing the next generation of people and the next generation of kids. These choices are ours to make both as citizens and as society. And ultimately, if any of our visions of the future are going to come true, particularly ones where the world is better for everyone, it starts with what we're deciding now. And for all of our sakes, I hope that we choose wisely. Thank you.